Welcome to week 4 of English in the Modern Office. In this lesson 2, we will look at the final part of emails. Writing an effective email can be pretty challenging for some people. But the good news is you shouldn't worry about writing a beautifully crafted email every time. Knowing your email etiquette, however, can benefit you in the long run. You'll be able to write better emails, feel more confident about writing them, and your written emails will show your professionalism and respect towards the recipient. Before we dive into the lesson, let's discuss a bit about the 5 learning goals that are covered in this lesson. Formal versus informal emails, inquiries, requests for action, exchanging information, and making and confirming arrangements. To start off with, let's discuss a bit about formal and informal situations and some basic rules you should know when you're writing an email. Let's look at the differences between writing a formal and an informal email. Imagine this. When you address a friend, you might speak to them casually, saying, "Yo, what's up, Jilly?" using their nickname and greeting them in a personal level. And a friend wouldn't think too much of it. On the other hand, if you're addressing your boss or your superior, you have to choose a different set of words. Greeting your boss with "yo," as well as addressing them by their nickname, would probably get you fired. When you greet someone who has a higher level of authority than you, say a teacher or a boss, you should greet them by using their surname. For example, "Hello, Mr. Gillibrand." Note, only greet someone by their first name if they give you the okay. The same set of rules apply when you're writing a formal or informal email. When you write to a teacher or a boss, you write formally. Write as concisely as you can, and make sure you don't use more words than you have to. When you write to a friend or a family member, you write informally. You feel free to write casually, but you should still follow the basic email structures that we talked about in the last lesson. We will also be discussing how to make email inquiries. If you're searching for answers and would like to give someone some feedback for their services, you should contact the other person. But how do you make inquiries without offending the other party or sounding nosy? First, pay attention to your subject line. Your subject line has to ensure that the recipient will open your email and read it. Then we will go on to the main body of the email. Remember, we've mentioned before that we don't need to write an essay-long email. So the same goes for writing an inquiry. You shouldn't write a long email, otherwise it would sound as if you're complaining or lecturing the recipient. Make sure you sound polite and concise, and focus on why you're writing to the recipient. There'll be more on this subject during the lesson. Now, let's take a look at requests for action. In businesses or workplaces, much like we have discussed earlier, we would use a different set of words when speaking to a colleague. Despite being in close quarters with your colleague for most of the day, that doesn't mean that the two of you are friends, and you can start calling them by their nicknames. So make sure you don't write an overly informal email when writing to a colleague. Again, we'll discuss more on this and how to address a colleague within the lesson. Following that, when we write to a colleague, we might be asking them for a favor, delivering good or bad news, thanking them for their help, or congratulating them on a promotion. In this section, we'll cover what sorts of words or phrases you can use when you address a colleague in emails. How do you write to a recipient informing them of good news? Well, we could say, "I'm writing to inform you," and follow it with a congratulatory note. However, how do you deliver a piece of bad news to a recipient without sounding awkward about it? Or what if the recipient loses their temper and begins to respond with an angry email? What do you do in that situation? Not to worry. You will be learning how to write an email delivering some bad news, as well as how to write an email or respond diplomatically when someone loses their temper in an email. The next goal we'll be talking about is making and confirming arrangements. It doesn't matter what sort of arrangements you'll be arranging, whether it's a meeting, a party, or a conference. You should know how to write emails in order to arrange an event, asking for other people's time and seeing if they have time to attend the said event. Now, let's turn the tables. What if you're the one receiving the invitation for an event? Will you be going or not? How do you make confirmation or decline the invitation? This section will talk about what sorts of words you use to confirm whether you're attending an event or not. So that's the 5 learning goals that we have in this section for emails: formal versus informal emails, inquiries, requests for action, exchanging information, and making and confirming arrangements. All right, that's it for the introduction. Let's take a look at week 4 of the email section in the forum.